You're listening to the True Faith podcast. I'm joined by Micky. How are you doing, Micky?
All right.
I'm your host, Adam. I'm very well. We're here in True Faith HQ, TF Squared. True Faith at the Toffee Factory. So we're here and we're going to talk about, this is the tactics show, we're going to talk about Cardiff and what went, pleasingly, what went right.
Yeah, it makes a nice change.
Which hasn't really been the case as often. You know, Rafa tries and tries with very little resource, but you really made it click on Saturday. So we're going to try and delve down, get to the bottom of exactly why that was, and we'll obviously talk about the opposition as well. But yeah, I mean, let's kind of crack into it. For the record, I must say that I was wrong on one of the podcasts a few weeks ago. I said that there is absolutely no way Rafa Benitez would go 5 at the back at home to Cardiff City, who have the one of the worst defences in the league.
One of the worst attacks in the league as well.
And one of the worst attacks in the league, it's particularly away from home as well. Their attack, extremely poor, which we saw.
You weren't the only one, to be fair. Lots of us have said that we didn't want to see 5 at the back. I don't think any of us said that Rafa wasn't going to do it. That one might be on you, but I remember distinctly saying, like, I really do not want to see 5 at the back against Cardiff because I shite. But Adam,
well, yeah, I'll go straight into it. Like, I think one of the reasons that I really didn't think, or that he would, or that he should go 5 at the back, is that because in other games where we've played 5 at the back at home, I felt that we haven't been proactive enough. I don't think we've been attacking enough, and I think we've been too conservative against teams where we really should have gone for the jugular. Perfect case in point, the Fulham game. So we went 5 at the back against Fulham,
which we're all bitterly disappointed about.
And it was such a drab game, and there wasn't much. We were very. I never felt in threat of conceding in that game. Well, apart from that crazy 10 minutes at the end, which was wild. But we just didn't. I mean, no shots on target at all in that Fulham game, and you think, is it the 5 at the back that's hampering us? You know, Rafa Benitez talks about the blanket, you know, and his blanket is firmly covered at the back because what he's trying to do is survive siege mentality in the Premier League and not lose games.
Yeah.
So we're kind of left open and exposed and asking a lot of his players in the final third to actually put the ball in the net and create enough chances. But what I found against Cardiff is that actually, because we had, you know, more possession than we usually would in a home game, because we're used to playing counter-attacking football. We're used to having, certainly against the more difficult teams and away, we're used to having 25% possession, 30% possession, 35 tops. You know. I think in the win away to Huddersfield, I think we had less than 30% possession, which just
against Huddersfield as well.
Yeah, against Huddersfield. But we just did more with it when we had it, and this has been the hallmark of Rafa Benitez's sides since we've come up in the Premier League. It's sorting out the defence first, and he's done that with his recruitment and his organisation, and you know, trying to build a team up from the back, and you know, the fact that we as a team are very, very strong in defence. So what we will often do is, because we don't have the clientele that I think he wants to be able to keep possession, and Rafa's very sceptical about possession stats anyway. He always said possession is a stat for TV. It's more, I think he's more bothered about. I mean, it is important, I think, because the more possession you have, the more chance you have of creating chances, all this kind of stuff. But it's about being effective when in possession. So it doesn't matter if you have 3% possession. If you do something amazing with that 3%, if you actually create, you know, chances and take and score goals, then it doesn't matter that we haven't had more possession, as long as you're doing what you need to when we have limited possession.
Yeah, I would say like 3% would be insane.
That would be embellished slightly there, but I think
it has felt like that. I mean, sometimes this season it has felt like we've had 3% possession.
Absolutely, But I think the difference in how Saturday's game against Cardiff was approached is there's an argument, and I still think there's an argument to say that, and this is me just trying to save face, people, so don't listen to me too much.
Let him have it.
But I wonder whether he still would have gone 5 at the back had he had 2 of Shelby, Diarmi or Key available to him. I, initially having seen the team sheet, wondered that do Hayden and Longstaff provide enough protection to a back 4, even though it was against Cardiff. I think, but Rafa goes into all these games thinking, absolutely, I cannot lose this game, and he couldn't have lost it because it would have been the 6 point, the cliched 6 point would have been set adrift of Cardiff. They would have been 4 points clear of us, and that would have been incomprehensible. So he absolutely couldn't have lost that game. So, but I guess as I said, my main issue with 5 at the back is that it has been and can be too conservative against the teams that we really should be going for and scaring and asking questions of and driving at them and force them into errors. Was actually because we had a lot more possession, I think, on Saturday, Micky. And the performance of the wing backs in Yedlin and Richie, who Richie in particular in the first 2 minutes already signals intent how hard he was going to work. He could see he was snarling. He was well up for it on Saturday.
There was a passenger play in the second half where he made like 4 tackles in a row in the left back position, and he had to go off.
Yeah,
and it was
it epitomised it, didn't it?
It was like when Scott Parker had that game against Arsenal, where he was ridiculous, and then eventually just crumbled at the side of the pitch, had to go off.
Yeah,
it was sort of reminiscent of that.
It's what we want to see, though.
Yeah,
it's like that. That's the kind of battle, and great to point that out, because I think that epitomised just his mentality and how Rafa Benitez can motivate his teams to really fight and battle when we need it. And I wrote about this in a sort of article I did before last week ahead of the Cardiff game, and it was about he comes up for us in these big games. He came up for us against Huddersfield last year, Southampton last year. Those 2 crunch games either side of an international break, which I think had we not won those games, we wouldn't. There's no way we finish 10th, and there's no way we finish comfortably away from the relegation zone as we did in the end. So he came through for us on Saturday, and you could just see that he'd got the team, motivated, and in a sort of a kind of embattled approach to the game. They knew it was just straight in there, and the work rate of Yedlin and Richie in particular, I think, was the key to the victory. Because to finish my point from before, yes, a 5 at the back seems very defensive, but if you're playing with wing backs and we're going to have more possession than we usually do, what I saw on Saturday was that actually, because we had the ball more often than they had the ball, what you get is kind of close to think of a Antonio Conte 3-4-3 kind of formation, because you look at those formations where you'd have like Marcos Alonso essentially just being lined up in midfield, because more often than not they're going to have the ball, so they don't need 5 in defence. They'll be progressed further forward. So what you had is Matt Ritchie essentially just playing left midfield when we were going through our really strong passages of play, and Yedlin's work rate means that he can bomb up and down, and he made at least 5 or 6 surging kind of 60-70 yard sprints. Sometimes he got the ball, sometimes the ball didn't make it out to him, but it basically gave us extra attacking players, and I think it was in those wide areas that we won the game. Because looking back at the Fulham game, we really we played 5 at the back then, but Fulham also played 5 at the back, and what happened? Nothing. We couldn't break them down. We were the crossing. The majority of the crossing was far too deep, and therefore not as effective in terms of creating meaningful chances that could lead to goals, because we basically went toe to toe with Fulham in terms of formation.
You know what I think about your point on the wide players is right, but because they're launching their offensive play from a position which isn't that of a winger, that they're slightly more reserved in the starting position, they were just unlocked. Like every time we looked right for Yedlin for the ball, there was no one from Cardiff anywhere near him. Like nowhere near him. So he's got like 50 yards to just run a straight line at them and put us in a really attacking position, and it worked time after time after time. And it was the same with Richie to a lesser extent because he's not as fast.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that was I think key to the performance. The other thing, I don't know, are we going to go on to talk about personnel here, or can I bring it in now?
Go for it, man.
So I think the key difference in this five at the back, other than what you've said already, is the fact that we had Lejeune and Shaw as two of the defenders. Because it's like having two fucking midfielders.
That's a really good point.
So good on the ball, and they were so comfortable gathering it like on the edge of our box and bringing it out 30 yards and starting the play from there. And those two, like having two of them that can do that in the same team at Newcastle United is absurd. Like, we've never had that before. But you think about that, it allows now, without being too harsh on them, because it is well at the weekend, Hayden and Longstaff in central field is weak.
Yes, and it is, and it's an experience, and it's young.
Yeah, in creative terms especially, it's very, very weak. However, when you've got Lejeune and Shaw able to bring the ball to the halfway line and start the play from there, it allows them to move forward, and they're one pass forward. Imagine if we had that system or we had Shelvey and Key playing on the edge of their box. Like, the whole system works so much better with ball players at the back, and I've been banging the drum for sure all season, and in that three at the back there, it was just a joy to watch how comfortable they were on the ball.
I couldn't agree more. That's a really, really good point to make. We talked about, as I said, the wing backs becoming midfielders, but like you say, with ball playing defenders, they're the ones progressing the line. They're going through the lines, and
so I think we almost had a formation of 1-4. So that's one at the back, Lascelles, and then 4 in midfield, which is
a very bold 1-4.
Yeah. Richie, Lejeune, Shea, Yedlin, and then 2 playing at number 10 together, Hayden and Longstaff, and then 3 up front. That's effectively what we played. Yeah. The most attacking formation ever.
You made a really, really good point before about how, you know, the wing backs were able to get in behind. And my theory for this is that because so Cardiff were playing in a rather inflexible sort of basically a 4-4-2 really, but 4 at the back.
Neil Warnock's bent without politicising it. That's what it is.
Well, we definitely did. So he's got 4 at the back, and I think Rondon. This is where Rondon was incredible, because often, and you see stills, I've seen stills from the game as well, and seen him, he's basically been able to pull 2 defenders out with him, because he's that strong, he's that much better than them, that there's needed 2 on him to kind of, because they know that Rondon's the linchpin to our attack, which he is, because he holds the ball up, gives us time, makes us progress with territory, and waits for the runners to come past him so you can feed off, you can feed them in. So Rondon kind of was occupying, more than one centre back on many occasions. You've got Atsu and Perez, who are kind of like, the inside forwards almost. So you've got the wing backs doing this. You've got Perez and Atsu there, and Rondon there as a kind of little spearhead. So with Atsu's and Perez's movement, they were pulling away Cardiff's fullbacks in themselves, or even if they distracted just one of them. Yeah. And then you've got Yedlin bombing in as an extra forward, and Richie to a lesser extent. You're kind of outnumbering them already in terms of the defenders being able to cope with our system. Yeah. And I think that's why we got in so many times. Certainly, you talked about it before, the diagonal ball across to Yedlin. Longstaff tried it, Lascelles tried it. There was a few that, that had we had Key or Shelvey on the pitch, would have hit him 2 or 3 times more than we did, and caused some serious problems for the Cardiff defence. But I think that's where our system was superior to their system, because a 4-4-2 is just, it's flat and it's inflexible. They didn't have I don't think they had the tactical nous in Warnock to be able to change it up. I don't think they had the personnel to be able to change it up. because I think with five at the back, as we kind of described, it can be so fluid depending on what players you have and what roles they're able to. So, like you say, Cher and Lejeune become midfielders. The wing backs become midfielders. Sometimes Yedlin, essentially a right back, becomes a right forward because he's that far forward and he's that penetrative. So you've got kind of this fluidity. Sometimes Perez will almost be behind Rondon on his own, and Atsu will sort of drop back into on the left of a three midfield, although that feels very much a square peg and round hole situation. But sometimes it can be more advanced. So there's lots of options that Rafa has when he plays this five at the back, and I think he's just too clever for Warnock. And by the end of it,
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. He's just Rafa has outthought Warnock on every possible level within that game, and the system has just worked to a T against probably the worst manager in the Premier League.
And when the chips were down for them, basically after the hour mark, we were 2-0 down. I mean, they normally just resort to this anyway, but they resorted to, obviously, all they had in the locker was, with Warnock, what's the approach? Route one. Yeah. Knock it up to the centre backs, to the strikers.
Yeah.
To sort of
hope for the best.
Hope for the best. Yeah. Hope that they'll get a flick on and the runner will pick it up. But the problem with that is that you've got Lejeune, you've got Lascelles, and you've got Fabian Cher, who are all extremely competent in the air.
Yeah.
Like aerially, they're phenomenal. And even if Dummett comes into the side or Clark comes into the side, they're all very, very capable.
Our best centre half.
Serious?
Fernandez still to come back.
Oh, sorry, I've even forgotten about Fernandez, of course, yeah. So you've got Fernandez as well, and we've suddenly, we're so strong in that department that they were never going to get anything out of that. The most dangerous that they became, Cardiff, was a couple of dangerous corners in the second half. They had things. Cher cleared one off the line, and
what a game he had, by the way. What a game!
Bloody hell! Like defensively, incredible. Obviously, going forward, he was the difference. Ultimately, to win us the game before Perez managed to get his injury time icing on the cake. But yeah, absolutely. And what we're saying is we've got so many good defenders. Is that different defenders are outperforming the others a different one each week.
Yeah.
So I think Lejeune had a pretty decent game, and in a couple of weeks, Lejeune's going to have a man of the match performance as well, just from doing what he does, because I still think Lejeune is probably a cut above all of our other centre backs. I think Fernandez is a close second. I just think Lejeune has it. I think he's his composure, his distribution, and
he's just a delightful footballer.
He really
we were
is.
saying during the week, he's the one out of our squad that would make the majority of the top six sides better.
Yes,
he's that good.
I mean, he would walk into, say, Man United's defence, which is full of just shit, really.
He'd probably start alongside Van Dijk, I'd say. Definitely play for Arsenal.
Oh, he's 100% better than Lovren,
yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Chelsea gets on their side. You would say David Luiz is terrible.
Yeah, he's playing quite well at the minute, isn't he? Judgment call. But no, I absolutely take your point. He is a cut above, and we're reaping the benefits. And if this system that we have is going to be more beneficial to the fact that now he's back around, we can build on this, and I can buy into a 5-man defence if it means we do have this fluidity and this not quite a sort of total football approach, because that's too much, but the fact that it just feels a lot more kind of holistic and natural and organic, that when we need to advance, players aren't hampered by lines. But what I was, despite the fact that we have this fluidity, what I was really, really impressed about when Cardiff did get possession was the fact that how quickly we were able to regain our shape.
Yeah.
I was so impressed with that, because I think they had a break from one of our corners or one of our attacks, and we just managed to shepherd the attacker so much, and then within seconds, there's your banks, and then we're solid again, and they haven't breached halfway past our half, and suddenly we're safe again. And I think that's not to be overlooked as well. But it's interesting as well because of this kind of this flexibility in this attack. We talk about Cardiff only really being a threat from corners, but we scored lots of different kind of goals on Saturday. We had Shares run from open play, 100% open play.
Ridiculous.
Well, this is it. The fact. I think the stark contrast between the two, I really liked how Hayden and Longstaff really got in the faces of Cardiff. So when they did have possession, they were kind of panicking. They were looking to pass it back or try to find the flanks, just because we didn't give them much time at all. Whereas you look at the stark contrast of that is Share's goal is the example. They back off. They don't get in his face, and he great little finish, obviously, but. He shouldn't have any right to be anywhere near having a shot.
The defender was
atrocious. It was almost like they intentionally let him. It wasn't like it was. Surely it's harder to let him. Your instinct is just to go and commit, or almost overcommit.
Especially the back off all the way, basically the 6-yard box. It's like the one in the shoot because I thought he was going to miss, but that's just
wrong foot centre back, but like. Bloody hell, he called the bluff, didn't he? But so we scored from open play. We scored from a corner, set piece. So the flick on from Richie, flick on from Lascelles, and Share at the back post, which essentially put the game.
Oh, it's so firmly in bed by then.
Yeah, I mean, again, you'd be cautious to say that at the time because it was still a little bit. If they got a goal in the next sort of 15 minutes, it could be a nervous finish, which we're very, very used to, but. Apart from that, and then I believe that the Perez goal in the end came from kind of like a counter-attack with Rondon getting the ball eventually on the left-hand side. Because we'd had a couple of counter-attacks where I think Atsu had flashed one over the bar, and I was kind of thinking, and that was from one of their corners, and I was kind of thinking, it's just sort of, I would have liked him to sort of maybe get the ball on target, the shot on target, but at least it was kind of like just an elaborate clearance. At least he did something with it. I was pleased that Atsu actually did something with it, and then shortly after that, it was when Rondon did his lollipops, crossed the Perez, and at this point all their defenders weren't in position, and he was able just to walk in front of the last defender and tap in from a couple of yards. So variety in the way that we're scoring as well, I think is really important and really encouraging. And yes, we did this against a very, very poor side. We did.
But we haven't had that all season, have we?
Not at all. Not at all. Like. The possession that we had against Cardiff was 54%, which is so much higher than we're kind of used to. Just to put it into context, a few selected possession stats from home games. We had 50% versus Wolves. That was obviously they won it in the last minute. 39% at home to Bournemouth, which I'd argue was probably one of our other best performances of the entire season against Bournemouth, and that was only 39%. We won that game, the Rondon brace. Then we had 42% against Watford, which we won 1-0, but it was very scrappy, obviously. And Watford probably should have had us out of sight by half time. And only 41% against Leicester, which we obviously lost 2-0. So it was the more possession than we'd ever been used to, which I think is why, like I said before, the five-man defence worked so well. But looking at, this is the tactics show. I'm going to indulge a few stats and be a bit technical. Looking at some sort of expected goals stats. In terms of XG, expected goals, it was our second best attacking performance behind that Bournemouth. So we were expected to score kind of 2.32, that's 2.3 goals based on the chances that we created. So that's quite high, really.
Especially for Newcastle.
Absolutely, the Bournemouth game was our highest with 2.58, and I think even the top clubs, I don't think you'll find many top clubs getting over 3 in terms of expected goals, even on route. So that's quite a positive. That's quite positive. To counter that, Fulham's the 0 shots on target we had against Fulham, we had an expected goal score of 0.29. so that just kind of, as a kind of sort of reference point, we really upped our game from the Fulham, the dirge that was that game, sort of completely impotent and profligate up front. We just came out, and maybe it was that Cardiff we were more successful against the Cardiff back four than we were Fulham back five. But maybe it's just we turned up. Maybe it was just we were more motivated, the crowd were better, and things just seemed to click. Because sometimes tactics can only take you so far. The players still have to be mentally right, and just things just click for us. But I think there was a little bit of that against Cardiff.
There's definitely part of that specifically from Rondon's individual performance, because that's kind of his ability to hold the ball up and drag the play forward is fundamental in that system working. And I thought Rondon, as has been said all over social media and the proper media, was outstanding. Absolutely outstanding.
Absolutely crucial. Like he's so important. But when he's not in the team, possibly he's in the team, we absolutely don't get that, and we have to change the way that we play. Unfortunately, and it's often not as fruitful. I did a few crunching numbers. I won't bore you too much, but I kind of had a look at the differences between us playing four at the back and us playing five at the back in terms of the goals that we'll score and the goals that we'll concede as well. When I was lucky enough to meet Rafa and talk tactics with him, he would stress a few times. He stressed the importance of these marginal gains. So when you have, a side built on the shoestring budget, and you aren't just able to go out and buy the best here and the best there. You have to kind of optimize what you have. Looking for marginal gains, and looking for marginal gains often within data, is something that you'll do to try and find weaknesses to exploit, opportunities to exploit for the way we're playing, and also weaknesses of other teams that we play. So I did some number crunching, and basically with four at the back, we, in terms of expected goals that we might score, was just under 1. It was 0.96. And in contrast to that, five at the back, it's almost identical. It's 0.97. So in terms of our attacking, the probability of us being more successful in an attacking sense with 4 or 5 at the back is negligible, really. Although slight improvement, very, very small, when it's 5 at the back. But what's more interesting is that on average, and this is per 90, we are expected to concede 1.66 goals per game when we play 4 at the back, whereas when we play 5 at the back, that drops to 1.44. So that's, again, these might sound like very small differences, but statistically and stretched out across a season, the bottom line here is what I'm saying is we are better defensively with a 5-man defence, and slightly better, only slightly better, I can't say it, negligible in terms of attacking improvement, only slightly. But ultimately, Rafa will look at that and think we're conceding fewer goals, so we have an even stronger defensive base in which to build a performance upon. That's why he's gone with 5. This is why he's pushing for a left back, because he doesn't want to play Richie left back. He wants Richie to be further up the pitch. Yeah. He wants, in getting a left back in, we suddenly add an attacking player that could start.
Yeah. If you told me those numbers about how many we were expected to score with 4 and 5 at the back before the weekend, I would have told you were a liar. Honestly,
no, don't blame me.
But now you think about the context of that performance, it makes sense. It makes total sense.
And obviously it's going to click more against, poorer quality sides, and depending on the formation and the strategy that they're using as well. But, from looking at this and looking how things went, he's going to see what went right on Saturday, and he's going to try and replicate it. And this is what he did last season in the second half of the season. He found a formula. He went with the 4-2-3-1, and he found a team that he rarely changed, because he knew what he wasn't in the cup competitions, and he found a team that he knew that clicked, and he went with, because at the start of the season you forget that we didn't know what our best centre midfield partnership was. Yeah. It was only the second half of the season that we suddenly Diarmi wasn't getting booed anymore, which it was as recently as last season. Yeah. Diarmi wasn't getting booed anymore, and Diarmi and Shelvey created this perfect pairing the likes of which haven't been seen since the Kabay-Tiote partnership in midfield, just perfectly complementary of each other, and he'll go with it. So I think this is what he'll do now with the five. He crafted this 5-man defence tactic on the road. Those results we picked up at Burnley and Everton and the like, and we nearly came away with from Old Trafford with points as well. And I think he's going to keep going on. And I'm more encouraged now that 5-man at the back doesn't necessarily mean conservative.
Yeah.
It can be attacking with the right players and with the right mentality. Now, looking at our defence now, we have the joint 6th best defence in the league. That's ridiculous. It's probably no it's a surprise to us, having seen us play week in, week out. But that'll be a huge shock to probably most casual Premier League viewers.
Yeah, and you know what it is? If you put our defence in like any other team that's ahead of us in the league, that's got like better attacking, it would be higher than 6.
100%. This is Rafa's genius.
Yeah.
This is optimising what he has, and he like bloody hell. He's Kieran Clark, 5th choice centre back, is a joint. What is he like? Joint second top goal scorer now, which is just that's crazy. 5th choice, 5th choice centre back. So in terms of like again just the last point on our defence and how important it is and how good it's been, and obviously last season he went for that extra point by having the more superior goal difference, which ultimately got us in the top half.
Yeah.
It was the difference between a top half finish and a bottom half finish, and all the criticism received for parking the bus against Man City, etc., etc. Who wants to lose 5-0 when actually losing 1-0 can work further down the line, and he's smart enough to know that. And I think this is what he's doing now. And actually, this season we've lost a lot of games, granted. We've only lost by more than a single goal 4 times this season. So we've only lost by a margin of 2 or more 4 times. One of them was Leicester, 2-0, Champions League team a few years ago. Liverpool and Man United, 4-0, 2-0. Both Champions League teams, essentially. And then the other one was the West Ham, 3-0 at home, which we got absolutely destroyed in.
Yeah.
So I think the West Ham was kind of the anomaly. Leicester, we might have done a bit better, but Leicester are a very, very good side. So you kind of, the Liverpool and Man United fixtures, you just kind of take as a given, really. And you look at that and you think, we've only been turned over by more than a single goal in a game, twice by teams we might be looking at possibly nick a draw or win against. So this notion that Rafa always wants to be in a game for as long as possible, as long as he's in the game, within a goal, right at the end, which we have been against some of the big teams.
Yeah.
Will always put it in with a shout. One corner might, one free kick at the end, one counter attack could get us a draw, where otherwise we'd just be like 3-0 down and out of sight by 70 minutes. So he's building from defence, as we know, but I think these numbers really kind of strengthen what he's trying to do, and it just shows that we really, really need a match for Yedlin on the left-hand side. We need a mobile wing-back who has a lot of stamina, a bit of pace, and can maybe deliver a ball at the other side. And that'll mean that Richie gives us an extra option in attack. It means hopefully when Kennedy's back, could he pick up some of the form that we're crying out for? We know he has some of the talent.
Yeah.
And if we were to get, we're looking at Gelson Martins, which seems very, very fanciful to me. The Almiron deal is still apparently on the table, but regardless of whether we bring these or not, I think the left back's very important, given what we've kind of talked about today.
Agreed.
But yeah, I think that's kind of what I'd say. I don't know if you've got kind of any final words, Micky, on there.
No, I think we've summed it up quite well. The moral of the story is trust Rafa and not us. Trust
Rafa. He's the boy.
Yeah.
He is the boy. We'll leave it there. Thanks very, very much for listening to another True Faith podcast, which comes to you in association with FansBet, and of course sponsored by our wonderful, beautiful patrons who make all of this possible, who've made TF Squared HQ offices completely possible. And Micky, thank you very much for joining us. And let's chat tactics soon. Cheers, everyone. Bye bye.